Penguin Random House Audio presents The Virgin Way. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing. By Richard Branson. Read for you by Gildart Jackson.
Try everything once, except incest and folk dancing. Sir Thomas Beecham. Preface. Life's too short. Don't enjoy it, don't do it. From my very first commercial venture at age 16 with Student magazine, right up to today's far loftier adventures with such things as Virgin Galactic and space tourism, I have always had one paramount philosophy. If a new project or business opportunity doesn't excite me and get my entrepreneurial and innovative juices flowing, if it's not something with which I sense I can make a difference while having a lot of seriously creative fun, then I'd far rather pass on it and move right along to something else that does excite me. The same line of thought flows into my attitude towards writing books. If I don't enjoy writing them, then the chances are pretty good that nobody is going to be too happy reading them. The simple fact is that if you don't enjoy what you're doing, and the people with whom you're doing it, then there is no possible way that you are ever going to do it as well as something that you do enjoy. As some wise person once said, life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. So, unless you plan to give it a better shot in your next life, assuming you are lucky enough to get a second chance, then why risk wasting any of your limited time on this earth doing stuff that doesn't light your fire? I am constantly amazed at how many people appear to live their lives either always looking in the rearview mirror or talking about how things are going to be different in the future. There is nothing wrong with cherishing and enjoying memories and hopefully learning from past experiences, just as planning for the future is something we obviously all have to do as well. But what about today? All too frequently, now gets lost in the frenetic shuffle to rush ahead to tomorrow. Face it, these are the good old days that you'll be looking back on 20 years from now. So why not move heaven and earth to enjoy them while you've got them? Mahatma Gandhi is one of my all-time heroes, and a quote from him that I think I first read in a school history lesson has stuck with me ever since. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. This good advice has been popularly abbreviated to live every day as if it were your last, which is a wonderful sentiment, even if it has frequently become a worldwide rallying cry for never mind the consequences hellraisers. I remember well the one time, as an apprentice hellraiser, I tried using the latter version on my mum as an excuse for some mischief or other. But Mum, I implored, I was only doing what Gandhi said I should do. Unimpressed, she gave me a straight-faced reply of, "Pull that trick again, Ricky, and today could very well be your last." Actually, the best quote on living every day like it's your last belongs to Steve Jobs, who in a commencement speech he made at Stanford University in 2005 said, "If you live every day like it's your last, someday you'll almost certainly be right." It would be funny, but for the fact he courageously gave the address just 12 months after he had been diagnosed with a cancer that would kill him 6 years later. As fallible human beings, we all make our share of mistakes and get ourselves into the kind of predicaments that result from making the wrong choices. But in the vast majority of such situations, we all have the ability to pause, take stock, and say, "Sorry, but I'm really not happy with this, so I'm out of here." I recognize that in a lot of instances, particularly when friends and family are involved, this may be easier said than done, and taking any such drastic action usually calls for a lot of courage. However, as the old adage goes, when you make mistakes, at least try to make them quickly. I have often had people say to me, Well, sure, Richard, all that stuff is easy for you to say when you've built your business and you've pretty much made it in life. To this, my response is always along the lines of, yes, that's true, to a degree, but why do you think I have all those companies? They almost certainly wouldn't be there had I not repeatedly dug my heels in and refused to spend my time on things I recognized as just not right for me. One of the earliest examples of a situation in which I felt off-kilter was my time at school. When I shocked my parents as well as friends by dropping out of the prestigious Stowe School at age 16, I did it with my young eyes wide open in order to pursue a dream of starting my own magazine publishing business. In my heart of hearts, I knew that making Student Magazine a success simply didn't necessitate me spending any more of my precious time sitting in stuffy classrooms. The idea of spending another couple of years memorizing mind-numbing facts from textbooks, wrestling with the joys of calculus and defining little-known Latin verbs seemed totally irrelevant to my future life, and so I had to escape or risk losing my sanity. Please don't misinterpret this as some kind of burn-your-books, anti-education tirade. Quite the opposite. Availing yourself of the best education you can get is an imperative, particularly in today's ultra-competitive commercial world. When I went to school, however, learning was much more of a memorization and regurgitation process than it seems to be today. The old way was particularly challenging for someone like me with dyslexia and borderline ADD, attention deficit disorder. There were several excellent teachers who did make their subjects come to life, but with my early-stage entrepreneurial juices starting to flow, I had mentally moved on already. The paradoxical twist is that ever since I dropped out of school, I have spent the balance of my life with a thirst for learning about new things, businesses, people, and cultures. The big difference, of course, is that my learning process has involved experiencing all these things firsthand, as opposed to reading about them in books or third-hand from someone who frequently had never lived outside of academia. Although I had serious trouble tuning in to teachers in school, when I struck out on my own, I had to quickly set about honing my dubious listening skills. One of the first of many tasks I took on at Student was that of cub reporter, so when interviewing someone, I had no option but to listen intently while scribbling down notes that sometimes were almost completely indecipherable. Whether it was with John Lennon or John le Carré, I had to rapidly acquire the art of simultaneously listening, writing, and thinking about my next follow-on question. It was somewhat of a Chinese plate trick, as you had to keep all the components spinning, or you found yourself helplessly adrift. But the ability to lock in and listen is a skill that has served me well in life. Although it seems to be somewhat of a dying art, I believe that listening is one of the most important skills for any teacher, parent, leader, entrepreneur, or, well, just about anyone who has a pulse. What's become known around our various companies as the Virgin Way is something that has evolved since day one. When someone who has just joined us from outside comes out of their first, usually highly informal strategy or product meeting and says, "Wow, you folks certainly do things differently, don't you?" the response is often, "Yep, that's the Virgin Way," usually said with a smile and a knowing wink. As you will, I hope, understand, one of the keys to the way we do things is nothing more complex than listening. Listening intently to everyone who has an opinion to share, not just the self-professed experts. It's also about learning from each other, from the marketplace, and from the mistakes that must be made in order to get anywhere that is original and disruptive. And perhaps most importantly, it's about having fun with a capital F while we're doing it. Leading the Virgin Way often has quite unpredictable consequences and takes us to places where other, more sensible operations might fear to tread. And with a brand that is now as visible as it is, this means leading from the front.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?